Hey everyone, I am back. It's Dr. Hammond here with your mental health moment. I hope that you have had a good week. For those of you who are new to Mental Health Moment, it's Dr. Hammond here with your Mental Health Moment. We are here every Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on Black Women Empowered Incorporated, Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn Live. For those of you who tune in every single week, welcome back. It's Dr. Hammond here with your Mental Health Moment. Thanks for those who are starting to join here today. It's Dr. Hammond here. Good evening from San Francisco. Welcome, welcome. And for those of you who are tuning in on the replay on YouTube, on Dr. Nikisha Hammond YouTube, welcome back. And thanks so much again for those who are starting to join here. I can't believe it, but we are officially in a new year, which, like I said, the end of the year always seems to just fly by. And here we are. So happy new year to you all. I'm wishing you all health and wealth and happiness and all the great things, right, that the new year can bring. And hello, thanks for those who are still starting to join here. It's Dr. Hammond here with your Mental Health Moment. For those of you who are new to mental health, for those of you who are new to Mental Health Moment, just a reminder that every first Tuesday of the month is specifically devoted to children and teen mental health issues because, of course, as we know, there has been so much that our youth has been dealing with, especially over the last couple of years here. And Happy New Year to you as well. I see your comments here. Welcome, welcome. Let me see here from Virgin Islands. Welcome, welcome. Let's see. Houston's in the house. Bronx is in the house. Boston, Ontario, Canada. Welcome, welcome. Thanks so much for joining here. And Happy New Year from the Bahamas. Happy New Year to you as well. It's Dr. Hammond here with your Mental Health Moment. So first, before I start today and share a couple of tips with you all related to children's mental health, I did want to express some prayers and thoughts. Some of you may have heard about, especially, well, whether or not you're living in the U.S., you might have heard, even if you're outside of the U.S., but last night there was a football game on and an NFL game, and there was a player who collapsed on the field. So some of you may have heard that story. My husband and son at the time were watching the game, and so I pretty much saw it live when that happened. 24-year-old, I believe, football player collapsed from a cardiac arrest. It was just nothing that I've ever witnessed before to that extent. He was rushed to the hospital, and he's currently in critical condition. So just thoughts and prayers. I don't know him personally, but his mom was there, which I can't even imagine as a mom myself. I just can't imagine. It's a very traumatic thing to witness. Obviously, your child playing a football game and having that type of injury. So the last I checked on the news or on social media, he was still in critical condition. So I just ask you today, before I start our Mental Health Moment, just to pray for him, for his family, for his friends and teammates, and everyone around him. Someone said that must have been devastating for her. Absolutely. From what again, just keeping track of the story, her riding in the ambulance, there's a lot of, it's traumatic, you all, right? It's your child. So I share this story with you though today because honestly, last night watching it live when this was unfolding, and I honestly lost my mind for a minute because there was a point when that happened, and not just his teammates, but the whole team on both sides were just devastated. There were players that were crying. There were players that were in shock. Witnessing this for me as a psychologist, I'm like, man, these people are traumatized. This is traumatizing. Because for those of you who haven't heard about the story, the medical personnel had gone out into the field doing CPR for I want to say 9 minutes, right? That's traumatic to watch. Someone that you care about, someone that you love, community member, everyone in the stadium is also witnessing this. There's a lot of trauma that comes about. And I was having an issue, I'm not going to lie, at first, because initially it was okay, this just happened. And all right, players, let's have 5 minutes and then we're gonna go back and play this game. And I was literally like screaming at the TV. I'm like, no, like you can't do this. Like you have to put people's mental health first, right? So that's my message today though, is for us all to remember to put our mental health first, and especially for youth, and especially for children, teens. Like we have to remind each other as a community to put our mental health first. And so fast forward later on, a lot later on in the game, they decided to postpone the game, right? And the players didn't have to go back onto the field and try to process the trauma that they just went through. Because it was interesting, because I was just listening the whole time, to a lot of the media coverage at the time, and they were basically talking about, understandably, this is about someone's life at this point. Like, yes, we get it. Like it's a football game, and people are in the stands and people are watching on TV and there's entertainment and that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, like this is someone's life, right? And that was more important than football that night, which I appreciated. I also greatly appreciated that the game was just postponed. And it was, like I said, a little while later. But also I'm sharing this with you because, a lot of this, what's starting to happen a lot more that I'm seeing, is that we are starting to see things play out a lot in the media and social media of mental health, right? I mean, if you saw the game, maybe some of you did. Someone said no one was prepared emotionally or mentally to continue to play. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I mean, and I don't wish this on anyone, but to witness someone, it was very hard. But to witness someone that is fighting for their life right in front of your eyes, it is so traumatic. And there are so many people that witnessed that. But again, I'm sharing this with you because I want for us all to think about putting our mental health first for a lot of these kids and teens out there. And I'm not I have a doctorate degree, y'all, so I really believe in value education, but I wish that I had that message when I was a kid as well. Like, put your mental health first, because I didn't. I'll tell you that. Full transparency, I really didn't. Everything was about making grades. Everything was about excelling, which are great things to have, but also, right, we have to teach our kids about mental health. So it's great to excel in school or in sports or in art or in music or whatever they're interested in. Those are great things, but also, and because we always think we have to choose this either or, and the same with us as adults, we always think we have to choose this either or, but it's and. So let's make this conversation about and focus on your mental health and prioritize your mental health. It's interesting because I have a 10-year-old son now, and obviously, as a psychologist, we have a lot of conversations about his mental health and making sure that he's taking care of himself, making sure he's okay, making sure he's good, and he's really into sports as well, which is great. Whatever your children in your life are into, um, but in addition to that, there's a lot of conversations. Again, excel in what you're going to excel in, but take care of you. Focus on your mental health. Someone said, hashtag your mental health matters. Hashtag your mental health is a priority. Absolutely. I think it was a couple weeks ago. Yeah, I was right a little bit before Christmas, when we saw the DJ from the Ellen DeGeneres show, like, which was also so tragic. We learned about him dying by suicide, and there was this belief. We don't, well, maybe some of you know him personally. I don't know him personally, but there's just belief because we're seeing people on social media and we're seeing dancing and we're seeing smiling, like everything's okay and everything is perfect and happy. But again, what we're starting to see a lot of in the media and social media is like real mental health challenges being played out right before our eyes, right? So we saw and we know, but we know even deeper that what we see on social media is not always the case in people's lives, right? And that's something that we have to teach our youth as well. There's so many, you all, especially teenagers. They compare themselves so much on social media. They are struggling because they believe everything they see on social media to be real. Again, a highlight reel is what it is. That's what social media is. But they see these things and celebrities' lives, or people they admire on YouTube, or maybe their friends' lives, and they believe every single aspect is so perfect, and this body is so perfect, or this life is so perfect, or having this amount of money is so perfect, or all these things, and it's not realistic half the time, right? Um, yeah, someone said Stephen Boss rest easy. Yes, absolutely. It's not realistic, right? So we have to be teaching our kids again. Number one, mental health has to be a priority. Put your mental health first. We have to continue to have the conversations about social media, about what is real and what is a portion of what they're seeing. Again, a 30-second video that you see in a 24-hour day does not tell you anything about this person's life. 30 seconds, a 30-second video with someone dancing and smiling and singing, it doesn't tell you anything about this person. They had what the rest of their day, right? 24 hours in a day. So we all we struggle with this as adults too sometimes, right? There's plenty of research on it of comparing things that we see online, but especially for our youth today, as they're focusing on them, reminding them again the danger sometimes of social media and that comparing, which leads to a lot of the depression and a lot of the anxiety that I see. Someone said 100%. Absolutely. Um, yep. Someone said, my family decided to start our New Year's dinner off with an open dialogue about this very matter. We've struggled since losing two daughters back in 2017. And I wanted my grandchildren to know and understand their emotions. Beautiful. That's a beautiful conversation to have. And first of all, condolences to you for your loss. But that is a really important conversation to have about emotions. I wrote a whole book about it, about how to manage emotions, right, for kids, because it's very powerful. It's very, very important. I know I say this and I'm biased as a psychologist talking about feelings and talk about mental health, but it's just so critical when we teach this to our youth early, when we teach them how to prioritize. Again, I wish I had this information when I was younger. I didn't learn it till my 20s, how to understand mental health. But when we teach it to them early, we're giving them a gift. We're giving a gift to understand how to deal with loss. It is okay to grieve. It is okay to feel sad. It is okay to cry. We saw last night, or some of you that may have seen this football game, or maybe even the highlights, there were grown men bawling their eyes out, understandably. We are allowed to cry and feel emotions. There is a traumatic experience of someone fighting for their life right in front of your eyes. You're watching, oh, I'm getting chills. You're watching someone receiving CPR and not responding. That is traumatic, you all, right? So we all saw that as a community, but the thing our youth need to understand is that's okay. You should have that experience, right? We can't just keep swallowing our emotions and not feeling the anger, or feeling the sadness, or feeling the anxiety, or whatever it is that is coming up, which causes, by the way, a lot of behavior problems that we see. I used to work in the school system. I can't tell you how many times kids would be getting into trouble because they were suppressing how they were feeling about a lot of things that were happening at home. And that's why they were getting into trouble. Not because they were quote unquote bad kids. No, they had some issues with dealing with their emotions, and that anger and that behavior issue was really due to them struggling with depression or struggling with some type of traumatic experience. So again, and thank you for your comment. Oops, let me scroll down. Okay, thank you for your comment again, as you mentioned, but you're absolutely right. We have to be aware again and help kids manage their emotions appropriately. It is okay to have emotions. Some people, yep, said, or someone said, people are suffering in silence. We have to give our children permission to be vulnerable and feel safe to communicate their emotions. Social media is reckless. Absolutely. And I'm not I'm not obviously anti social media here. I am on social media right now. So I mean, it has its pros and its cons. Absolutely. What is always really frightening to me is reading comments sometimes, and I'm still like mind blown. I've heard a lot of stories as a psychologist, but I am just, my mind is blown by the things that people say to one another, and just how awful people treat completely strangers who are online. So you're definitely right, and we do have to give our children permission for that vulnerability. What I do love about social media right now, though, one of the positive things is that I have definitely seen a trend, I would say over the past decade or so, because social or mental health is at the forefront, thank goodness, of people's conversations, and we're finally starting to recognize it. There are a lot more people being vulnerable. There are a lot more celebrities, YouTubers, and things like that who kids are watching that are saying, "Hey, I am depressed. Hey, I am anxious. Hey, I go see a therapist. Hey, this is what I learned today." And therapy, like these sorts of things are happening. Excuse me, which is really exciting, right? Which is really exciting because kids need to see that. Kids need to know it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to experience these things, and here's how you deal with it. And a lot of kids and teens, when they see their peers, when they see the YouTube stars or social media influencers or whoever you want to call them, admit to these types of things and know that it's okay to receive help. It's okay to have counseling. It's okay to have a mental health issue, to be have trauma, like all these things. It's okay. It's a part of your experience. And here's how you can cope and get through this, right? It's very motivating for a lot of kids. So that's what I get excited about when I see that on social media. And I hope we continue this trend of more vulnerability and more children and teens witnessing the reality, right? The reality of emotions and mental health. Someone else said, checking in with our family and friends is a must. Absolutely. I think we did a whole mental health moment about that a while back. Very, very true. I just strongly encourage you all to continue to do that. I know many of you do because you tell me, which is awesome. But I also continue to whether or not you have kids watching this, or maybe you have grandkids, or someone that has kids, or whomever, um check in with people, check in with parents are overly stressed, especially after the pandemic, or grandparents, or whomever it is that's taking care of kids. A lot has happened, so make sure to check in with them. And again, it's a simple text, sometimes it's a simple email, it's a simple phone call, it's just something quick, so people know that you care. So yes, thank you for that reminder. Let me see. Oh no. Someone said my daughter took a dance class of his in 2019 and was saddened by his departure. We followed him on social media and like many thought he was extremely happy. Yes. And it's hard. It's hard to explain that to kids sometimes too. Just because they're very concrete, especially when they're younger and they see things on social media and they believe it to be fact. I remember I don't do therapy now at this point in my career. But when I did, in the very beginning of when I started my private practice 14 years ago, I had some conversation with some kids, and I just remember, especially the middle schoolers, that like anything that their peer said to them, they would believe as fact. And I'm like, but that's not true, right? Like it's not at all true. It would be something ridiculous. I'm like, but that's not true. And they're like, no, but they said it was true. And I'm like, yeah, but it's not, it's not true. Right. But it's so interesting for kids and some earlier teens, like everything is very concrete. So if you see, but they were dancing and they were singing, so you're absolutely happy. And it's like, well, no, because you only saw a portion of what was going on in that person's life. And that's what we have to keep reminding kids about. Um, and someone says, grief and trauma is something that's so difficult to process. It really, really, really is. I just felt, on so many levels it was really hard, actually. And I'm just, I mean, I don't say just, but I was an observer on, watching television of this football game, and it it was so hard on multiple levels because, again, the psychologist in me, I can't help it. Like I'm looking at these facial expressions last night of these football players who are just stunned, who are bawling, crying, who are like just not there, like not understandably, like not mentally there because they're trying to process what's happening. And then I was thinking about this mom, like just watching, like, oh my God, my heart was just going out to her, like as a mom myself with a kid that's in sports, like just man, like so difficult. And then I was thinking about all the fans, like, and how traumatized they were by witnessing that. Like, there was just so many levels. You got the team members and the coaches. There were just so many people impacted by this, like you said, the grief and trauma from that experience of last night, not to mention when things happen, going back to to the suicide of Stephen Boss, like, what happens sometimes, a lot of us adults and kids, we don't even have to know people right now, but because we have social media, because I mean, we're so inundated with the news and everything that's happening, we ourselves sort of have to be careful of getting traumatized as well. We don't, just because of how much coverage things get because of I think back to even 2020 with the murder of George Floyd, and just how many times we were seeing video after video of killings, and that murder, and then so many other killings, and it's a lot to process. So we also have to remember too, of when we think about our kids, when we think about children and teens, thinking about putting their mental health as a priority, what is it they're processing? Because to your point, the grief, the trauma, there's so much even collective trauma, if you will, from COVID-19. There's still so much that we are processing as communities, right? So how can we first understand that, and recognize that, and then how can we help? Um, Someone said, "My family just lost a 30-year-old family member on New Year's Day." Oh my goodness. This topic is so desperately needed, and I'm so sorry too about your loss. That is really difficult. It's yeah, really difficult. Again, multiple levels. I mean, you're talking about a family member, you're talking about a very young individual. I'm not sure what happened, but it's New Year's Day, which most people are thinking about celebrating, and New Year and new me and all these sorts of things. And then to have, this type of situation happen, and this loss is very difficult. What I would share with all of you all today, including obviously the kids and teens that we're talking about today, is when it comes to the grief and loss, though, please, please, I strongly urge you to make sure that you give yourself grace, that you do what you need to do during that time, which might mean that you're a little less productive than usual, which is okay. But to make sure that you are taking care of you during that time. Very, very critical, very, very important. Grief comes in many forms, and we all experience it differently. We all need different timetables. There's not a right or wrong. You might need a day, you might need a week, you might need a year, you might need 10 years. I mean, it's on different timelines. So respect that for you. Not necessarily what the next person expects you, the timetable they expect you to grieve in. Yes. Oh, thank you. Someone said condolences, and prayers for your family. Um, Oh man, gosh. Someone else said, "That's the reality of my family as well. My niece lost her boyfriend on early New Year's Day. Man, my thoughts and prayers are with you and your family during this time of bereavement. You all. Oh my goodness gracious. I am so sorry. Wow. This is really hard." um, Whew, there's a lot of loss in this room. Well, first, I do want to share with you all. Let me back up a second. So, Mental Health Moment is open to all races, ethnicities, religious beliefs, genders. Everyone is welcome here. I do want to take a moment because I'm seeing a lot of loss, a lot of grief in the comments. So, I just want to take a moment though and let you know that I'll be praying for each and every one of you, through these times. It's so like God, it's so hard. Grief is hard. I've never been a grief counselor. I will tell you that. I would be bawling my eyes out, with the person in the room, which is why I never went that route, when I did counseling, because it's a really hard thing. It's just hard. Um, um, but there is a lot of hope. I'm not going to just say like, oh, it gets easier with time. I mean, it does for some people in different ways. There is hope. But again, I don't want to sit here and say like, okay, it's going to be better next week, next year, next month, right? We have to give ourselves grace though to heal through this time, and allow yourselves, the ones of you mentioning this, especially to make sure that you're working on your healing journey during this time. Yeah, wow. Someone said, I used to work in an emergency room for 15 years. I've seen a lot of trauma, and the thing is, you never get used to it. Wow. Wow, that's a lot. And it's funny you brought that up because I was even thinking last night about, I mean, even the medical personnel that went out there, and I mean, just there were just so many people impacted last night. And I mean, I'm not in that field, but I'm just empathizing and imagining first of all, you're in a huge stadium. and you're trying to do CPR and you're trying to save this I mean, it's just it was so much. It was so much. And even um with some first responders that I've had conversations with as well, like there's traumatic experiences. It doesn't matter, to your point, how much experience you have in that area. There's just some things just really are tough. So I'm hopeful too, really hopeful that a lot of people last night who had that experience in that stadium, I'm really hopeful that a lot of people are getting some form of grief counseling to just process what is happening. I hopefully the players are as well, and anyone potentially in that stadium, because it was very, very difficult to witness. Um, Someone said there needs to be more discussion about emotions, males and females. It's okay to have feelings. Yes, it absolutely is okay to have feelings, and man, it's okay. It is okay to have feelings, and there's so much education that needs to be done. So much education that needs to be done for our youth about feelings. I was actually, oh man, I forgot what I saw it on. I was watching something today, and I can't remember what platform it was on Instagram, and they had the short video clip, and it was asking boys and girls like, when's the last time you cried, and what was the reason you cried? And it was just such a huge difference with, I mean, in their, again, short experiment, there was like a couple people of each gender. And a lot of the boys in their experiment were like, oh, it's been, I don't remember when, or it was a year ago, or this and that. And then they would ask the girls, and they're like, last week, last month, this and that happened. Like, it's just, that's a whole nother mental health moment. But we have a lot of stereotypes, unfortunately, about different genders and what emotions should look like and shouldn't look like. The reality is, it doesn't really matter what gender. We all deserve to feel our emotions, to work through our emotions, to process what is happening and not rush through that, and be gentle with ourselves and cope with the things that are happening to us. The same thing with our youth. We have to be teaching them how to manage their emotions. Someone said, oops, someone said, since the pandemic begins, I am out of a job. I'm struggling with all sorts of things, including mental health. I'm trying very hard to lean on God. Sometimes it's difficult. It is difficult. It is difficult. Prayers for you as well. There's a lot. There's so many people, right? Globally, the pandemic really just shook us up as communities. So the whole employment just looks so differently globally, right? There's still people, right, to your point, out of a job or underemployed, and all these things happening, which is a lot to process, right? There's different levels of stress. There's the financial stress, there can be emotional stress, there's your personal life happening, all these things. And when we think about these things happening to us, when we think about the youth, they're a part of households, right? Dealing with these stressors as well, we really, really have to take a step back. And again, I know that's my theme for today, to really to encourage youth to put their mental health first, but also, of course, for us as adults, because again, there's so many layers of stress. And fun fact, kids do not, they cannot process things the way we process as an adult. Their brains are just not as developed as adults. So it's a lot, you all. And even the kids that look, quote unquote, look like they're okay, there's a lot of kids that are struggling. There's a lot of kids that are struggling, to your point, with parents out of work or caregivers out of work, with the stress, still the stress of the pandemic, and what that could mean for their families, for whatever's happening in school, for whatever's happening with their friends, their family, for losses, for grief, for trauma. Like, there's so much, you all, there's so many layers. So I really want to emphasize this as we think about this, because hopefully this will give us more empathy when we think about whomever it is in our lives. Or maybe, again, a parent or a caregiver that needs this information, but they are really managing a lot right now. They're really processing a lot. Someone said, but we need a community to help children, teens, and adults the space to process all that they encounter on social media, the good, bad, and the ugly. We do need a community. We absolutely do. We do. We do. I'm so glad you said that. We we absolutely do have a role as a community. And again, I know you may be thinking like, okay, well, how do I help kids, right? There's a lot of ways. That's a whole nother mental health moment. But really, if you think about in your local community, whether again, it's your child in your home, or you have grandkids, your niece, your nephew, whomever it is, there's a lot of needs in local communities. So whether it's a local school, whether it's a local nonprofit, whomever that you can help is going to be so helpful when it comes to helping our youth, because really there's a huge opportunity there. So I don't want you to forget about that. Prayers for you. Yes. Um, Someone said a lot of vicarious trauma is occurring and many people don't even realize we're taking in the weight of it as individuals. Absolutely. Yep. Someone said grief is different for everyone. Absolutely. Um, no duration for grief. Absolutely. Just reading your comments here. A lot of you are saying, condolences to everyone. And I also want to, as I, kind of wrap up mental health moment tonight, I also want to remind you all to keep everyone really in this chat here tonight, in your thoughts and prayers, and obviously um, the family of the player from last night, Hamlin, and him, and his teammates and everyone involved, because there was a lot of people who were traumatized last night from witnessing that. But also in this community here, a lot of you shared a lot of grief and a lot of pain and a lot of hurt. So again, I will be praying for you all through that. If you need any mental health resources, please feel free to reach out. You can go to my website, drnikishahammond.com, connect with me on social media. You can send me a direct message. I'll do my best to connect you with someone in your area. I know, thankfully, a lot of mental health professionals throughout the country. So please be sure to reach out. I'm more than happy to connect you with someone. But yes, I encourage you to seek help if you need it in that way, whether it's family, friends, mental health professional, because you are allowed to be happy, you're allowed to be emotionally healthy, and you're allowed to start the healing journey. So, this was, yeah, this was a lot. This mental health moment was very, yeah, is very difficult, because a lot has happened in the last couple of days. But again, please share this information. If you know someone that needs, again, resources related to children and teens specifically, again, feel free to reach out to me. I'm always sharing information on social media channels as well when it comes to mental health, especially youth. So you can direct them that way as well. And yep, and I see your comment in here about the counselor. Yeah, send me a direct message on social media, and I'll help you find someone in that area. Yes, and next Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I will be back on Mental Health Moment. Please take good care of yourselves. Please give yourself grace if you need that. And if you need me, you know where to reach me. So I will see you all next Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on Black Women Empowered Incorporated Facebook page, YouTube, and LinkedIn Live. Have an amazing week, you all, and I'll see you next time. Bye, you all.